Jason Hungerford, partner at global law firm Mayer Brown. Hello, sorry to have kept you, Jason.
That's okay, no problem at all.
So, that last text there makes a point. I think that a lot of people might be feeling in their hearts this morning, when have economic sanctions deterred a despot from doing what he wants to do? A tyrant, a despot, a man who doesn't take kindly to being disagreed with, shall we say.
Well, I think that's right. I mean, whilst I couldn't opine on the decision to use military action, the caller from Kent makes a good point about the effectiveness of sanctions. I mean, yesterday the question was, were the initial steps enough? And now think we can see that that was probably potentially a tragically ineffective strategic decision on the part of world leaders. There was no doubt, presumably in President Putin's mind, that sanctions would be the response to an invasion of Ukraine. And so there really shouldn't be any surprise that the relatively weak sanctions that were imposed wouldn't have the intended effect.
So what about closing the money market so that they can't do those kind of transactions that Nick Erdley was talking about? It makes it more difficult to get money out of Russia and money into Russia.
Well, these certainly are the next steps. I mean, it's going to be sanctions against banks. It's going to be sanctions against oil and gas companies, kind of putting the squeeze, so to speak, on the Russian economy. I mean, there are lots of tools, sanctions tools, left in the kit, but we can see now. Russia has committed, right? I mean, Russia has committed to an invasion. I think we need to realize that whilst sanctions can work, no sanctions imposed in the next couple of days by any national authority are going to result in the tanks turning around and going home. This is the beginning of quite a long march, so to speak. If we look at an example, if we look at Iran, I mean, those sanctions were in place for a very long time. Did they work? Maybe, maybe not. Iran finally came to the negotiating table after a very long time and a lot of pain to its population. They're going to be less effective with Russia, given its interconnectedness. It will close out relationships with the West, but there are other parts of the world where Russia will continue to be able to do business.
So, can you just explain, in real terms, in real time, how it would work with an oligarch here, a pro-Putin oligarch? We have to initially establish that, of course, who owns half of Eaton Square and has a couple of kids at Eton College, chucking him out of the country. How does that work with persuading Putin to do one thing or another?
Right. So, I mean, it's certainly not an ineffective strategy. I mean, this is the idea is that I think, as mentioned earlier on your program, there's a whole cadre of individuals which we tend to refer to as oligarchs, fairly or otherwise, that have gained an extraordinary amount of wealth due to privatization over the years and the support and loyalty to the president of Russia. By squeezing them, the idea is it breaks loyalty to the president and weakens the president's authority in the country. Some of these types of sanctions have been in place for years, since 2014, targeting some of Putin's inner circle. They have certainly restricted those individuals' ability to do business in certain parts of the world. But I mean, here we are today with Russia invading Ukraine. So I think we can see how effective those have been. So I mean, I don't think chucking school children out of Eton is probably going to reverse what we're seeing today.
Thank you very much indeed, Jason Hungerford. It's 10:34.